It was the best of crimes, it was the worst of crimes. What are you saying? That's your opening line, Arthur. It was the best of crimes, it was the worst of crimes. I don't need an opening line, thank you very much, Oscar. Oh, but you do, my dear fellow. What for? For your new book. It must open with that line, it really must. I interrupted. What new book? The one you're starting today, tonight, when you get home. Your account of our latest adventure, the most remarkable of all our extraordinary adventures, Arthur. He raised his glass to me. His bright eyes brimmed with tears. You're drunk, Oscar. I hope so, he beamed. I have made an important discovery, you know. Alcohol, taken in sufficient quantities, produces all the effects of intoxication. Oscar Fingal O'Flaherty Wills Wilde leaned back against the mantelpiece and laughed. He was 39 years of age and looked both older and younger. He had the moon-like face of an aging cherub, with full pink lips, waxy pale cheeks, dark arched eyebrows, and what he called proudly a strong Greek nose. He was over 6 feet in height, and though running to fat, still a fine figure of a man, because he held himself well. He was unquestionably someone. He was unmistakably the celebrated Oscar Wilde. He dressed the part. That Monday morning he wore an elaborately tailored 3-piece suit of blue Donegal tweed and a broad silk tie that matched perfectly the indigo-coloured winter rose that was his buttonhole. He claimed that the pearl in his tie-pin had once belonged to John Keats. When first I'd met Oscar, 4.5 years before, at the end of August 1889, at this same London hotel, the Langham in Portland Place, he was already famous, though known more for his flamboyance and wit than for his short stories and his poetry. He was rising 35 then, and I had just turned 30. I had published the first of my Sherlock Holmes stories, but was relatively unknown still, and earning my keep, inadequately, practising as a doctor in Southsea. At that first encounter, over a convivial dinner hosted by an American publisher who happily commissioned stories from us both, I was awed by Oscar's intelligence and captivated by his personality. His charm was irresistible. His conversation left an indelible impression upon my mind. Intellectually, he towered above us all, and yet he had the art of seeming to be interested in all that we had to say. He took as well as gave, but what he gave was unique. He had a curious precision of statement, a delicate flavour of humour, and a trick of small gestures to illustrate his meaning, which were peculiar to himself. We became friends at once, and remained friends, and while we did not see one another regularly, whenever we met, there was always an easy and immediate intimacy between us. That said, as the years had passed, Oscar had changed. The gentlemanly delicacy that I remembered from the late summer of 1889 was less evident in 1894. He was as witty as ever, possibly more so, but louder, and, it seemed to me, less mindful of others. He gave more, but he took less. There was an aroma of wine and tobacco about him now. His dress was possibly more sober than when we had first met, but his way of life was not. He had become successful as a dramatist. His play, A Woman of No Importance, had just opened in New York. He had become wildly extravagant. The Perrier Jouet we were drinking was the costliest vintage. As a husband and father, he had become neglectful of his obligations. There was a recklessness about him that was alarming. Being with him, you sensed danger in the air, and even a touch of madness.